All right, hello. My name is Will Janensch, and I'm one of the co-founders of TRUSET. TRUSET is a consensus project, a consensus spoke. And what we are doing is we are building a marketplaces platform to crowdsource the creation and validation of business-critical reference data. And what that means is that this is all the information about a financial security, or a security token, or a consumer token, other than its trading price. So we're not worried about the price, but we're worried about the other information that describes what that instrument is and how it behaves over its life cycle. And that information is incredibly critical for enterprise and institutional use cases. So when you think about how particularly institutional in financial services companies and investors need to engage with securities, and how large enterprises will need to engage with consumer tokens, they're going to need to make all sorts of decisions around when are they buying, what price do they want to buy at, for a consumer token, how they plan on using it, when they plan on holding or cashing it in. For a security, you need to make decisions about valuation. And then once you actually have securities in a portfolio, you need to make decisions around that portfolio, around risk analytics. You need to do portfolio accounting and a whole host of other types of processing functions. And at enterprises and institutions, these are all managed by software systems. And software systems need machine-readable data in order for them to be able to run and produce the type of analysis and results that you're looking for in order to make these critical decisions. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that most of that information is created and published in a non-machine readable, unstructured format. So for securities have to publish a prospectus in the US to the SEC. The SEC makes these prospectuses freely available to everyone, which is great, but this is a long legal document, 30 pages long, it's essentially a PDF. And you can't, for a portfolio of 10,000 bonds, for example, you couldn't plug in 10,000 prospectuses into your portfolio processing software systems and expect it to work. There is an even bigger problem in this emerging world of consumer tokens, where there aren't standards right now for how this information is disclosed and how it's published. And it could be all over the place in unstructured form. So it could be on the websites, it could be in white papers, it could be in blog posts. And right now, there's no clean way to extract all of that information and make it usable by the different software systems that will be required in order to make the decisions around how you use that token. So that's where TRUSET comes in. So we are building an ecosystem that allows the community of people that care about security tokens or consumer tokens to come together to mutualize that effort and crowdsource the creation of a machine-readable data set about the reference data for those tokens. And I'm going to show you a video of a demo in a second, but what you'll see is that there are three primary activities on the platform that enable this community to come together around generating this information. So you can publish information into the platform. So that would be a new token gets launched. The token project wants to get this information out there in a clean, machine-readable format. They could publish into the community. It doesn't have to be the project, though. It could be somebody else goes and finds existing white papers, existing blog posts, and they create a token record on our platform and publish it into the community. When it's first published, it's published as a proposal, and that proposal needs to get validated. One of the big problems that exists today in the legacy world is that this information gets produced, and it gets produced with errors, and every consumer of that information knows there are errors in the file. And so for themselves, they spend a lot of time and effort and money to fix that file so that they trust it to use within their own back office and front office operations. What we want to do is mutualize that effort, and the way we're doing that is through a validation voting process where the community that currently exists in doing this work in silos comes together on our platform, sees a proposal of a new piece of information, and then effectively votes on whether they believe that information is accurate or not. And in that process, if the vote turns out that there's a consensus that it is accurate, that record gets locked in the blockchain as a golden record, where it's then available in the future for any consumer of that information to go access and trust that that is the information that was in fact agreed by the community at the time of the consensus validation process. So I'm going to play a quick video, and we're going to see this actually working. Right now, we have an alpha running that this is showing. It's built on the Rinkeby testnet. And the first step is that a publisher is going to submit data into the platform. So they go into a set of data proposals. They can see a bunch of different tokens that are already there, but they're going to create a new record, and this is for a fictional company called Proof of Work Capital. And you can see there's no proposals in the system yet, but he adds a new proposal, and here's a form. And he can manually enter the information in the form. So he's entering the token symbol, he's entering the project name, but really there's a large number of fields here. And so in most cases, they're going to want to automate that process and upload via an API. We approximate that right now by being able to import a JSON file. And you can see now in the project details, all of the fields for this form have now been completed. It was in that JSON file. So there's information about the project, about the white paper, different social media accounts, the legal entities behind this project, the team, the information about the smart contract address and information in that smart contract, and information about the token sale. So all of this critical information you need. This publisher is now publishing it to the community. It mines to the blockchain. And now a set of validators will get an alert that says there's a new proposal for you to review. And here we've got the first of those validators, and he's going to go into his voting queue, see there's a new proposal there, Proof of Work Capital, and he's going to review that record. And so right now, we'd be doing what you would call a four eyes comparison, where he's looking at this and he's looking at other information. He's going and checking out the website, the white paper, and he's making a determination if he thinks this information is correct. There's other ways of actually doing that as well, running risk analytics against the record to identify possible problems. He voted yes. He thought it looked correct. Now we've got a second validator. He's going to go through the same process. He's going to find the record in his queue of active voting, and he thinks he sees something wrong. And so there's a couple things you can do at that point. You can add a comment to the record, and so here he's going to add a comment that says he thinks that the token name is incorrect. It should actually be P-cap. He adds that comment to the record. That mines to the blockchain as well. And then he also wants to vote on the record. So he thinks he's found a problem with this record. So he goes in and he votes no. And that vote also gets mined to the blockchain. Now finally, we're going to have a third validator. In this example, we only have 3 voters. In the actual application, we'd want to have dozens of voters actively voting on each proposal. Validator 3 goes in, he looks at the record, he thinks it looks good, and he votes yes. So now we've got 2 yes votes and 1 no vote, and when a defined threshold is reached in terms of time and number of votes, the administrator will go in and close the voting on this system. And so that's what we're going to show here. The administrator goes in, he sees the active voting, he determines that it's ready to be closed, and he closes that vote. So now, behind the scenes, what's happening is that the smart contract is calculating the votes and making a determination based on the criteria that we've provided about what consensus means, whether or not this proposal has been accepted. The current threshold is majority vote. This had 2 yes votes and 1 no vote, so that was accepted. You can see the state has now gone to accepted, and the publisher has actually earned true tokens, which is our internal accounting mechanism for now, that recognize the fact that he successfully published to the system, and that's his reward. So now there's a golden record locked in the blockchain for Proof of Work Capital that any consumer can now go in and access. And so here we've got a consumer. He goes in and can see all the different records that have been validated. He goes down and finds Proof of Work Capital, and here's the information that was just voted on and accepted as a correct record in the system. So, and he could then extract that. He could extract that and thousands of other token information, because those are the tokens he's holding in a portfolio, and he could run any types of analytics against that set of machine-readable data that he wants. So that's the current example of our alpha that's out there now. You are actually welcome to participate and play around on it, and if you go to our website, you're able to sign up. So what does that do? So that now creates a machine-readable data set that the consumers of that information can trust is the information that was accepted by the community, because it's been locked and timestamped in the blockchain, so they know that that information is the same as the information that was accepted. and it can't be changed without going through the same validation process. It's higher quality because it now has many eyeballs on the same data set reaching a consensus around whether it's accurate or not. It allows companies to stop having to do all this work themselves and rely on others or be able to mutualize that effort, so it's more efficient, it'll be lower total cost of ownership. And finally, there's a set of commercial incentive rewards, both for publishing and for publishing successfully, and for being on the correct side of a validation vote, that incentivizes the work that they're doing. And so we're still working out the exact reward model, but it would allow a participant to monetize a function that currently is just a cost center for them, where they have to go do this work of investigating and cleansing these data files. So we have these different use cases, and TRUSET now provides this foundational data layer, a machine-readable data layer, that can be used by software systems to help make decisions around purchasing of tokens, around using those tokens, business reporting, disclosure purposes, and all the different types of portfolio processing that are needed by institutional investors. So here's an example, and actually I'm going to call up one of my consensus colleagues, Mark Siade, and he is with a spoke called Frontier that is doing analyst reports. So why don't you talk a bit about what you're doing and also about how you're using TRUSET data.
Thank you, Will. Hey guys, my name is Mark. I work at Consensus and I'm leading Frontier. And what we're building at Frontier is a decentralized token platform aiming to generate high quality fundamental research around tokens. And as you all know, any reliable research is as reliable as the underlying data. And this is where actually TRUSET comes in. So with using TRUSET, our analysts have the opportunity to benefit from two main features that TRUSET provides. The first one is trusted and validated data. So our analysts don't have to go and cross-check or double-check any data that is provided through TRUSET, and this saves them time and money. And the second main feature is that it is in a machine-readable format, so they can take it actually and run any type of analysis they want with it and produce charts and tables that will allow them to build their analysis on top of that. So if you look at the report, and I think there are some reports that we can distribute to you guys, we basically based this on proof of work capital, which is a fake example. And what we did is basically two main things. We took the data from the TRUSET format and came up with tables and charts to make it more digestible for investors and any consumers that is looking into this type of information. And then based on that, we ran our own analysis regarding the token, the proof of work capital token, based on the different dimensions of the report. So in this case, the recommendation was to sell. And basically, the main reason for that is the proof of work capital team was not really a solid team. If you look at the team, you have Bruce Wayne, you have Tony Stark. They have great operational and technology experience, but they have no real investment experience. So the recommendation was to sell. And in any case, this is one example of how the TRUSET data can be used. And I'm sure there are many other examples. And I'm going to pass it back to Will to tell you more about this.
Great. So as Mark said, this is just one example of a use case that is typical in today in financial services and will continue to be needed in the world of security tokens, where institutions need trusted machine-readable data in order to be able to create analyst reports, to create analysis, and to do all the different types of purchasing decisions, trading, and portfolio management that is required by enterprise businesses. So that is the end of our presentation, but we've got some time for questions. Yes?
Do you only rely on community-provided data, or do you pull anything from the blockchain?
So right now, it's all community entered, so in terms of publishing. There is a certain amount of information that is in the blockchain and is already structured. And so as we can further develop the application, we do see opportunities for us to pre-populate certain things that are already pristine because they're blockchain data.
Do you think that would be like on par with community-fed data, or do you think because you're pulling it from the blockchain, there's already a sense of
So one of the cool things about the blockchain is for the data that's in the blockchain, it's trusted and pristine. We do see things with tokens, though, that there are, there's no standard, for example, around token symbols, at least currently, and so there are multiple examples of tokens, and it's not always clear that the one you're looking at is the right one, or the one you think it is. And so the information would be right, like if we pulled the information from that smart contract, it would be right for that smart contract, but one of the parts that community validation will still be critical for is actually the confirming that that is in fact the token that we're talking about here. Any other questions? Yes?
How do you start to think, how do you pick reviewers and find, how do you have a reputation score for reviewers and saying if they're wrong, right, about the voting?
So currently the way it's built is, and it's a little bit different than what you were hearing earlier about token curated registries, is it's one person or one account per vote, so it's not a token weighted vote. And we don't have a reputation system built in, but what we do will have built in, but we don't currently, is a staking model where you're economically incentivized to vote your belief. And and to be disincentivized from trying to game the system or spam the system with bad votes. Great. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Oh, wait, one in the back.
Yeah, sorry. Do you have any plans to expand this to data beyond tokens?
Yeah, so actually we started with non-token traditional financial securities, and we have a very similar model for fixed income securities, for example, that exist in the legacy financial services. And that is actually where the idea generated, because the data services around bonds that are provided by large traditional data vendors like Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters is not very high quality. And everyone knows it. And so the customers of that data need it to run all these processes, but then they also know that they need to invest in back office teams and systems to cleanse that data so they can trust it. And so the original idea was saying, let's use the blockchain to crowdsource that process. And then as the idea of tokenized securities, but also consumer tokens started coming to fruition over the last year, we realized that there's an even bigger challenge in the world of tokens where there's not even the standardization around a prospectus that you see in the world of traditional financial securities. And so there's an even greater need for a trusted set of consistent data around those tokens. But yes, we think it could be used for a variety of other types of data sets. Probably medical insurance is an area where there's a lot of inaccuracy in data that could use a similar type of crowdsourcing to create a trusted data set for.